Hello, everybody. Happy July 7th, 2020. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, we head down to the NVL for the Waterbury Career Academy Spartans head football coach, Pete Flammia, who's going into his fifth season with the program. Pete, you're a good friend of mine. It's a pleasure I can get you on.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Can't wait to get this thing started.
Pete, I think before we get into your time with Waterbury Career Academy, kind of just give us, a little bit of a memoir about kind of what you've done leading up to Career Academy, because you've built some pretty sustainable programs.
Well, first started with Kennedy High School, 2004. I was a freshman coach. A good friend of mine, Mike Minetti, actually called me up. They needed a freshman coach. I interviewed for that job, got that job, and then the following year, basically the whole coaching staff left except for Chris Sarlo and myself. And by default, I became the defensive coordinator at like 20 years old in 2005. So a lot of credit goes to him for giving me a shot and kind of trusting me with that. And, had my dad by my side through that. And he was obviously extremely influential in, everything that I did there and helped me out, side by side with me with that. And then 2008, that season, we ended up winning the division championship with Kennedy. And the following year, I went to Lewis Mills and started that program. So they were 1 year JV team before I got there. I picked it up and we went one more season JV and then went to their first season of varsity. Then that was in 2010. And then the next season, I ended up going to Watertown for a year, coached with one of my friends, Mike Verino, just kind of like a volunteer assistant type thing. And then Mike Minetti actually hired me at Post the following year. Spent a couple of years there at Post University. Got to learn the NCAA version. Even though it was sprint football, we still recruited at a Division II kind of level. We followed those rules. Mm-hmm. And then Career Academy opened up and started that program. So the rest is history from there, I guess.
Do you think that being able to, first off, you were around Chris Sarlo, who's, in my opinion, probably one of the most professional coaches. I mean, he comes into games with tie. I mean, he kind of looks like the coaches, that they would, the stuff that they would wear back in the 70s and the 80s and such.
Absolutely.
Do you think being around him kind of, showed you maybe a professional side that maybe you wouldn't have seen from other coaches?
Definitely. And, a lot of things that I took from him were the professionalism side of the game, the behind the scenes stuff that he did. Basically where we were at Kennedy, we had the longest losing streak in the state at the time. And the process that he took us through of installing the single wing offense and getting the kids to buy in on that, and us working together through that, and again, even his trust in me, a 20-year-old kid, just to learn how to become a coach. Mm-hmm. Throughout the season and get better and deal with other coaches and players and discipline issues on the team and stuff like that. All that stuff were things that I took from him moving forward, and obviously made it my own style moving forward. But just his professionalism, as you said, and his demeanor throughout the season, the games, prior to the games, practices, all that stuff, that was building a program as well. And I think that we did that kind of together. Mm-hmm. But I learned from him, like I said, the off the field stuff was extremely important on how he conducted himself there.
When I think of programs that are built or professional teams that kind of go through rebuilding processes, a lot of times it's younger coaches, because the veteran guys, the ones who are 50, 60, maybe even, very well seasoned, don't want to go through rebuilding. So do you think because you were so young and you were still trying to figure yourself out as a coach, that both going through Lewis Mills and Waterbury Career Academy at such a young age was beneficial, rather than you being in like your 40s or 50s and trying to go through that?
I think it's a double-edged sword, because when I started the Lewis Mills one, I guess I was a little bit crazy too. I was a little not mature as a coach. Mm-hmm. Like being in your 20s, early 20s, starting up a program. There are things that kind of bothered me then that don't bother me now. So yes and no to answer that question. I think being young, allowed me to put as much time as I wanted into the programs. I wasn't married. I didn't have a family, so on and so forth. But being older and more mature, I knew how to do things a little bit more the second time around, and I knew the obstacles that that would be thrown in front of me at Career Academy as opposed to at Lewis Mills, but able to take those a little bit differently. One of the major things was getting respect in the league. Where we were in the Pequot League was a little bit different. There were some really old school established programs where in the NVL going into the city, while we still needed to, gain our respect and everything like that, having the other city schools around us to kind of lean on and stuff like that, that definitely helped a lot. So there was a different dynamic. But my maturity as a coach 100% helped as well.
When you were hired for Waterbury Career Academy, did you have an idea of kind of how because you got to remember, you were the first coach ever for the program. So what you could lay your own foundation, you can kind of build it basically and literally from the ground up. So did you have an idea of how you wanted your program to be made and set?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to get as many kids out as possible. I think that was the most important part. And Ryan McDonald, our athletic director, allowed me the freedom to kind of do whatever we needed to do. So that first year, we had 40 sets of helmets, 40 sets of shoulder pads, and we had 85 kids come out for the team. And that was impressive. And just working with Ryan daily on, hey, we need to get these helmets. Hey, we need to get these shoulder pads. Hey, football is a little bit different than anything else. And Ryan's been around sports for, a bunch of years as well at Holy Cross and everything like that. But he was around soccer, and football is a different animal. Mm-hmm. Having him being able to support me and allowing me to kind of build the program how I wanted it to be built and, kind of mold that culture inside the school was extremely important. And then the kids to buy in. Obviously, we don't have 85 kids anymore, but the kids that are within the program really buy into the culture that we try to strive for. We try to be a professional team, shirts tucked in, so on and so forth. And I'm kind of a stickler with that, and they do a good job of that. We try to look professional and play professional.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday during work, and I remember hearing a part that kind of really intrigued me, that Pete Carroll talked to Dick LeBeau early in his coaching career. And he said that LeBeau told him two things that were very, I think, prominent for him to kind of, going forward as far as building a team. It was philosophy and culture. So the question I have for you is, what kind of philosophy are you wanting to have for the team, and what culture are you trying to breed amongst the program?
So philosophy-wise, I would just say we got to go out and play hard-nosed football all the time, hustle at everything, try to never take plays off. And then culture-wise, and this is something that even you have been around, with our practices and stuff like that, and our Manly Mondays take something like that and bring it to the next level, is something that I say all the time to the kids is just be a man. Just be a man. You have to learn how to be a man. You have to learn how to be an adult. And we've had girls in our program, so you have to learn how to be an adult. And the extension of that, besides our team, is our managers. You guys have a bunch of responsibilities that you have to take care of. And, you have to be an adult. And that's something that we strive to try to adopt, is to just make good citizens after football. Because not very many kids are going to get the opportunity to play at the next level, and even less of those kids are going to play professionally and get a $450 million contract like Mahomes. But it's about being a productive member of society. That's the most important part.
But the young men that you did have in the program this past season, or even the last few years, because, let's talk about it. Last year, your best season in program history, 7-3. You guys started out really, really well, and then towards the end, against Woolkit, against Holy Cross, games that kind of got out of hand, but that still doesn't erase what was a very successful season. But when you have the, quote-unquote, the Hogs, but they're not offensive linemen per se, Matabula, Prado, Gopi, you had some gadget guys as well, Cyrus Smith and others. It was a plethora of riches for you, and I think a lot of coaches in Waterbury would agree. I think Holy Cross and you guys were 1 and 2 in Waterbury, 1A, 1B.
Absolutely. And Holy Cross 3 years in a row, we're beating them in the third quarter, and then we end up losing, but going into the fourth quarter. But, that's a testament to those guys over there making adjustments and, just doing what they needed to do to win the game in the fourth quarter. But our guys this year, this was the best talent-wise team and the best leadership-wise team that I think that I've ever had. And going back to when I was the assistant coach at Kennedy in 07, 08, those guys were amazing. They weren't as talented as this group that I had, though. They worked hard. They hit hard. They did everything. But this group, they worked hard. They hit hard. They were physical. They did everything that they needed to do off the field. I've had very few issues in the school with any of those kids, the senior leadership that we had. And our practices were great. And we did what we could with what we had this year. So we didn't run too much team defense against the scout offense because the discrepancy between the two levels was so much so that we had our team defensive periods were watching film. We did a tackling circuit at the beginning of each practice, and then our team defensive sessions were watching film and getting prepared. And that was a testament to the guys because they were ready to play every single time. And every game we were in, even week 1 against Ansonia, I would argue that, we were pretty much in that game. The score didn't reflect it in the first half, but Ansonia, I would imagine if you talked to Tom about it, he would say, we were holding up with them in the beginning of the game. We started a freshman at quarterback who ended up throwing, 5 interceptions or whatever it was, 2 pick sixes in the first quarter, but it is what it is. He won the spot coming out of camp, and we move on from there. And then Julio came in and did a nice job for us the rest of the year. So it was an amazing time. I had a great time this year. I know all my coaches did too, but it was a tiring season. After that touring thing, I was, so it was good to have a bye week after that.
Yeah, Gaetan still talks about that. All he says, he doesn't say anything else other than, man, Gopi.
Yeah, well,
Gopi.
Hey. We were talking about before. I talked to him before. I'm glad we don't play them. I hope we never play them again. I'll go 2-0, and that's it. We'll never.
You don't ever want to step into Torrington or have them come down here again.
Opponent before, I'll get thrown out before we do it.
But hey, man, I really do appreciate you coming on. It was great to be able to see that game, broadcast that game against Torrington, but also kind of see how you built the program, because I felt like there should have been more publicity for you because of how the program was built. But you know what? I think you handle it with class, saying, you know what? At the end of the day, it is what it is. I'm just trying to help the kids.
That's it. It's all about the kids. I appreciate the kind words, though. Thanks, man.
But hey, hopefully you'll come back on in the near future.
Definitely. Love to have you back.
That'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. And remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent, and I'm on a journey to find them all. Have a safe and happy day, everybody.